Welcome back to PerpDex Daily. I'm Aaron. In today's video, we're going to be covering the lighter bull case, and I made this presentation for you all to go over my personal lighter bull case. Now, normally on the show, Monday through Friday, we cover the news and the PerpDex tokenization meme coin scene, but it's a Saturday as I'm recording this, and I made this presentation just for you all to present the lighter bull case. Now, for those of you that are really into lighter who are watching this, I made this presentation for somebody that, even if it was their first time seeing a digital asset or getting into crypto by watching this video, that they could actually understand it and get bullish on lighter. I also want to put a disclaimer out that there's a chance 5 years from now, people look back and say, wow, this was a really good video. The price went up a lot. And there's also a chance that 5 years from now, people look at this and they say, wow, Aaron, you were very wrong. So do I know where the price is going in the long term? No, I have no clue. But I am personally bullish, and I thought I'd put my thoughts out there. But anyways, let's start it off. The lighter bull case by myself, Aaron. Go follow me on X at Aaron Solana. Okay. So what is lighter? So to explain it basically in layman's terms, lighter is pretty much like a stock exchange, but for crypto. In the crypto world, we call it a perpdex, which is short for perpetual decentralized exchange, but you don't need to worry about all those big words. It's basically kind of like a stock exchange, but for crypto. It's built entirely on the blockchain, and traders can trade 24/7. It's open 24/7, even on weekends, and it's free to use, and there's zero fees on lighter. So unlike traditional markets where the market closes, etc., you can't trade on certain days, whatever, lighter is open 24/7. The traders can be trading commodities 24/7 on lighter, stocks, crypto, whatever. And this is a picture down below, as you can see here, of the lighter current new UI that's going to be coming out in, I think, probably the next couple weeks, or may be already out right now. Next page. Let's talk about the CEO and the founder of Lighter, because he has a really interesting background. So he went to high school with Vlad Tenev. Vlad Tenev is the founder of Robinhood. By the way, the founder of Lighter, his name is also Vlad. So the founder of Robinhood and the founder of Lighter have the same name, Vladimir. And he went to Thomas Jefferson High School in Northern Virginia. I actually grew up in Northern Virginia. I grew up right next to Thomas Jefferson High School pretty much my entire life. Didn't go to the same high school as these two guys, but fun fact about myself. So it's good to see that we have two guys, kind of from the hometown doing a good job and everything. But anyways, he then went on to Harvard at 16 years old. Crazy. Harvard at 16 is crazy. And then he graduated at 18. So you could tell from an early age, this guy was definitely special. He then got recruited by Ken Griffin at 18 to work at Citadel's trading desks, helping them out with a lot of stuff. I watched a couple podcasts, and this guy has a really interesting background. If you want to learn more about him, I highly recommend watching the podcast because he has a really cool story. He's not just some guy who's 20 years old and just founded some startup. I think he's around probably 40 years old, and he has a ton of experience. He's worked at a ton of different companies. He then worked to then proceed from the Citadel thing. He worked for Joe Lonsdale, who is one of the co-founders of Palantir at Adipar. Joe Lonsdale also co-founded and is a legendary investor. He's a multi-billionaire. He's a good friend of Vladimir. Okay, he's a good friend of the founder of Lighter. I've even seen Joe Lonsdale retweet some Lighter things and comment on some Lighter related content. So very good to see. It's a deep connection. Okay, he worked for multiple other financial companies and tech companies. Okay, there's a bunch of different companies he worked for, which is good to see. He then founded Lighter in 2022. And he currently sits on the CFTC advisory committee. And the last thing here is maybe the most important thing. He currently sits on the CFTC advisory committee. Yes, he does. Okay. Next slide. Let's talk about their investor history. What's Lighter's investor history? So this is their seed round, and their seed round they had in 2024. They raised $21 million. So here are some of the investors from the round. Craft Ventures, which is David Sachs' firm. David was Trump's former AI and crypto czar. He co-led the round with Hahn Ventures, Katie Hahn's firm. They both co-led the round. And then we also saw Dragonfly and Robot Ventures. So David Sachs is a big name. He's, famous in the kind of financial space and the tech space. He's an influencer podcaster, and he also worked for Trump at one point. So really big stuff. Now let's talk about their Series B. So they have the Series B round in November of 2025, $68 million raised. And let's talk about who is in this round. So Peter Thiel's Founders Fund led the round. If you don't know who Peter Thiel is, he is a co-founder of Palantir and PayPal. And he was also the first investor in Facebook and Meta. He is a legendary investor. I'm pretty sure his investment in Meta is one of the greatest VC angel investments of all time. I think he printed over $1 billion from his 500K investment or something like that. Absolutely ridiculous. But the other investors were Ribbit Capital and Han Ventures, again in the Series B, and then Robinhood via Robinhood Ventures. So this is where you see Robinhood step in, and this is what first really caught my eye about the Lighter project, was the whole Robinhood thing and the Peter Thiel stuff. So Robinhood invested a bunch of money into Lighter. All right, now let's talk about some of the other investors. So once again, we have Joe Lonsdale from 8VC. We have Kevin Warsh. So the current Fed chair is a angel investor in the Lighter protocol. Yeah, you heard that right. Kevin Warsh, the current Fed chair, is an investor in Lighter. Okay, Chapter 1, and then Anti-Fund, which is Jake Paul and Joffrey Woo's fund. So very, very strong names, big names. And also, once again, when you tie in the fact that he went to high school with Vlad and he has this long history, he worked for Ken Griffin, he worked for Joe Lonsdale. When I look at these investors, I don't think of them as just, okay, they're just, obviously everyone's trying to make money. That's why they're investing in the fucking project, obviously. But I think it's a little more than investment, and they do have a good relationship with Vlad. Obviously I don't know what's going on behind the scenes between Joe Lonsdale and Vlad. I'm not in the room with them. I'm completely just, kind of taking the puzzle pieces and trying to put them together. But when I look at everything, in my head, I think they have a pretty strong relationship, and these big backers and these big names know they can ride these investments out to hopefully, billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. So anyways, now we're going to move to our next thing. Let's talk about the Lighter partnerships, okay? So the biggest and the most recent partnership Lighter got was Robinhood. So Lighter is the core perps partner for Robinhood, and it is not currently on the main Robinhood app. Now, why is Lighter not currently plugged into the main Robinhood app? Well, Lighter cannot operate legally in the US yet because it does not have a license. Hyperliquid, Lighter's biggest competition, does not have licenses either. Do I think there's a good chance that Lighter will get a license at some point? Yes, I do. Because the founder of Lighter sits on the CFTC advisory board. So to me, I think it's a very high likelihood that they do get the license, and then they're able to operate on all these US platforms. None of this BS. No, like, oh, I need a VPN to get on. None of that stuff. So I think that's a really big part. Yeah, they partner with Robinhood, but I don't even think we've seen the best of the Robinhood partnership yet because Lighter still does not have the license. When will they get the license? Nobody actually knows. Hopefully soon. Second partnership's Telegram. Lighter is the core perps partner for Telegram wallet. This is really big. Telegram is used internationally, has billions of users, and it's once again just showing off how the deep-rooted connections the team does have. And I think it's very important when it comes to this industry that you have connections and you have people, big backers who really like you as a person and everything. And that's what I really find interesting is I like how the founder is so connected to all these people on even just such a personal level. So I really like that a lot. Circle, Lighter is a revenue sharing deal with stablecoin issued USDC. Hyperliquid has a very similar deal to Lighter. Pretty much there's just revenue sharing for just using USDC on the platform. Not too much, to say there. I'm assuming that relationship will 100% evolve over time as Circle is evolving as a company. But I think these core partnerships, considering the Lighter protocol is pretty early, it's a very new thing. I think this is a really good lineup, and I think the Robinhood partnership is going to get way bigger. I think there's going to be a lot more done with Robinhood. I think we've just seen the tip of the spear. Anyways, all right, PerpDex total addressable market. That's what TAM means, total addressable market. So how big can the PerpDex market get? Well, I personally think it is possible for it to go to hundreds of billions, and even maybe long-term, when I say long-term, 10, 20 years, 30 years, maybe even $1 trillion. Now, are we there right now? 100% not. And is this speculation? It 100% is. There's a possibility that, I think Hyperliquid's already to a degree one. Lighter is not putting up the same kind of numbers that Hyperliquid is right now. We're just speculating that it will. Hyperliquid still does need to get a lot bigger for it to reach what people are saying on Twitter as the TAM. So how big can the PerpDex market get? I think it could easily 10x from here. I 100% think that. Will it happen? We'll see. Lighter currently sits around a $500 million circulating market cap, just to kind of give you an idea of where it's at right now. Hyperliquid currently sits around a $15 billion circulating market cap. So Hyperliquid is Lighter's #1 competitor, and Hyperliquid is the bigger perp dex, okay? Now you might be asking, okay, why wouldn't I just be bullish on Hyperliquid over Lighter then? Because it just has, more money, more liquidity, this and that. I'm going to go talk about that later in my couple slides from now, talking about the distribution moat thesis that Lighter, has going on right now and we could really see play out. Tokenized stocks have seen 400% growth across crypto this year. So tokenization is actually taking off. Really good to see. And this is a big part of the whole thesis around these perp dexes. We need tokenization to continue to grow and grow exponentially in these next 10 years in order for these protocols to win. So last point, Hyperliquid and Lighter are still very limited as the US hasn't given them the licenses necessary to operate to USA customers. Pretty simple. The Hyperliquid and Lighter still can't operate, fully. They cannot be legally pushed to USA customers yet because they don't have the licenses. So in my opinion, looks like early. That sounds like we're very early. All right, so here's the graphic showing tokenized stocks grew 400% by market cap in a year. Nice, beautiful graphic from A16Z. The Lighter edge. Okay, so what makes Lighter different than Hyperliquid? Why Lighter? Why Lighter out of all the perp dexes? And I do like Hyperliquid as well. Let me just put that out there. Lighter is 0 fees. Okay, so that's one thing. Hyperliquid has fees. Lighter is 0 fees. Lighter is an ETH L2. So it has the benefit of having Ethereum security. Okay, and I know if you're not really into crypto, you're probably not going to care about that. But basically, you have to know because they built on Ethereum, the security is good. Every transaction is verified through ZK cryptography. Once again, it's another kind of niche thing that you wouldn't care about unless you're like kind of into the blockchain and all that kind of stuff. But this is pretty important because it means that there's not, you're trusting the cryptography. You're not just trusting people. So, and once again, cryptography is just math. So, distribution moat thesis. We'll cover that in a couple slides. Let's go. Now let's talk about how does Lighter actually make money as a business. So, premium account fees. So, institutions and whales pay a fee on each trade and have the best experience possible for their size. So, this is like really large size. Basically paying to have a better experience, and they pay a small fee. If you're retail, like me and you're paying 0 fees. LP earnings, so the liquidity pool earns from traders, losses, liquidations, fees. So the Lighter LP earnings. Circle USDC yield sharing, what we talked about earlier. They have a partner with Circle, the stablecoins. Lighter earns a cut of the yield generated from having USDC on the platform. And liquidation penalties, a portion of every liquidation fee goes to the protocol. So basically people just kind of getting, honestly just getting wrecked on the platform. Not necessarily getting wrecked, I don't want to say that, but losing money on the platform. Anyways, because that's a part of trading. You can make money and you can also lose money. I'm just going to call it how it is. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat. Distribution moat thesis. This is kind of my entire thesis for Lighter and why it could potentially win big. And I think it's really the make or break for Lighter. I think if Lighter is not able to execute on the distribution moat thesis, I don't really see a reason why it would ever even, have competitive stats to Hyperliquid. But it's already starting to play out with what we saw with the Robinhood partnership, the Telegram partnership. So it's already starting to play out. But I think this is kind of my long-term thesis of why this project could go to a $10 billion valuation, a $20 billion valuation. Anyways, my thesis is once Lighter is given the proper licenses and is fully cleared in the USA, they will be implemented further into RH, which has millions of users, getting onto the actual main app. Pretty much everybody under the age of 30 has the Robinhood app. This will, if Lighter and perps get pushed on the main app, and what it's going to look like is it's going to be the Lighter backend being used, and then it's going to be the Robinhood front end. But if perps get pushed onto Robinhood's main app and it's using Lighter on the back end, this will be absolutely huge for Lighter. And that just can't happen right now because Lighter just doesn't have the proper licenses. Okay? My other thesis is it will be the perp dex of choice by USA companies to integrate based on team connections, investors, etc. Once again, this is pure speculation, but I think based on the investors, based on how well connected Vlad is and all the other investors, I think they're going to kind of push this as, hey guys, this is the company that's been built and grown in the USA the entire time. Hyperliquid, Jeff's in Singapore. They're not really a USA company. Lighter is a Delaware C Corp, and they've always, built in the USA. And they also have a lot of big USA cabal investors invested in the project. So my kind of thought process is they're going to go around and say, hey, if you want a perp dex, use Lighter. This is our guy. We like Lighter. We like Vlad. We're invested. You know, it's just how the game is. You know, it's not always about, oh, what platform has most liquidity and all this. It could literally just be like, yo, Peter Thiel's the boy. And like, yeah, we're going to use his shit. You know, that's the truth. That's just how real life goes. You know, oh, we like Vlad. You know, I knew Vlad from back in Harvard. Let's use his stuff. And he's got all the investors. All the guys I'm friends with are invested in. They all like him. You know, that's just how business works, okay? And the perp pie as a whole grows exponentially. I think this is kind of like, this needs to happen. So if the perp pie and the entire tokenization thing doesn't take off, then the whole thesis like kind of doesn't really matter. So perps as a whole need to get bigger. Tokenization needs to get bigger. And then Lighter will get implemented into all these companies and all these platforms. And we'll have that distribution moat where at the end of the day, if Robinhood's using Lighter, then let's just be honest here. It's like, and I love Hyperliquid, but Hyperliquid is, you know, now has a market that they can't really touch. You know, the retail market that Robinhood has is ridiculous. And I think Hyperliquid's obviously a big winner now, and I think it's going to continue to get bigger. But I think, you know, the Robinhood partnership and other partnerships that could come really set Lighter apart from Hyperliquid in terms of like how much reach can they actually get. And I'm sure Hyperliquid has many more partnerships up their sleeve, etc. But I do think Lighter has a real case, and I think it could become a Polymarket Kalshi type of rivalry. It's not there yet. I mean, Hyperliquid's way bigger. But anyways, let's take a look at some of the current stats. So the TVL is currently sitting around 385 mil to 487 mil. 30-day perp volume, $39 billion. All-time volume, 1.63 trillion. 30-day DEX volume, $228.5 million per DeFi Llama. Revenue, annualized protocol revenue, 26.5 million. 30-day fees, 3.74 million. Once again, these numbers are very small and not big compared to Hyperliquid, but we're kind of betting that they're going to get a lot bigger. That's kind of the whole point of this presentation. So, and if you watch this whole video, make sure to subscribe, follow me on X, and give me a link in the description. Yeah, follow me on X, link in the description, subscribe. I put together this nice presentation for you all, and hopefully you enjoyed it. I wonder if you guys agree with me or not. You can come talk to me on Twitter and tell me if I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about, or if Lighter is going to be the next big thing and we're going to go to the moon and everything. But I'm really excited for Lighter. It keeps me excited for crypto. And if you are from the Hyperliquid scene, you watch this, I love Hyperliquid as well. I talk about Hyperliquid as well. I'm just trying to give my honest analysis. I'm not here to please the crowd. You know, I'm not here. I'm always going to be somebody who's just going to tell you how it is. And I don't really care if you like it or dislike it. I'm going to give my opinion. So, and if you don't like it, you can just unfollow or whatever. So anyways, thank you for watching, guys, and see you next time.